Released in 2007 for consoles and early 2008 for PC, Assassin's Creed was praised for its original ideas in gameplay, story, and setting. A game that started as the next Prince of Persia, it became something else entirely and spawned a massive series of games spanning 2 generations of console hardware. But does it still hold up after 7 years? Let's take a second look.
You're insane. So what is it, Mr. Miles? Live or die?
There are 2 stories in Assassin's Creed, one in the present where you play as Desmond Miles, and another in the past following an assassin named Altair. The player relives Altair's life using the Animus through genetic memories. You're tasked with eliminating 9 targets across 3 cities. The main meat of the game takes place during the Third Crusade in 1191, borrows from real history for its locations and characters, and focuses on a war between the Assassins and the Templars. Now, Altair's story didn't really catch my full attention until about halfway through the game. Once it did, it was in part to Altair's character development, as he goes from arrogant dickhead to wise and thoughtful master assassin. One other thing that grabbed me was the relationship between Altair and Malik. I enjoyed each time they interacted and how it changed throughout the game. The present story was less interesting, except a few moments, mostly being dialogue. Albeit some well-written dialogue, it still struggled to keep up with the much more immersive setting of the past. The ending had 2 very obvious twists. The past one was very enjoyable to see unfold, while the present one felt like a teaser for the sequel. And that's my issue with the present ending. It's anticlimactic and only serves as bait for the next game. So, for my playthrough, I used a .ini tweak to re-enable anti-aliasing, as the game disables it in the settings at high resolution. There's also a texture mod, but I didn't bother installing it, because the ones that are on there look perfectly fine. I'll link to these both in the description. Throughout each zone, Assassin's Creed is gorgeous. It's aged so well in this department due to some very detailed textures and animations. The cities manage to feel very lived in, and as a whole succeed in being believable. You can really feel the great care that was put into this game's environment. The buildings don't even look like they were designed to be climbed on, and seem really natural. The outfits of the citizens, though, unfortunately repeated often, were also pretty accurate to the time period. Altair's animations are impressive and well done as he climbs and fights. I have some serious issues with the sound. Why? Because it sounds like compressed shit. Listen to this.
I'll get you.
It doesn't help that the NPCs often repeat dialogue over and over to a maddening degree. Most of the voice acting is quality work except for the main character. Altair's voice acting is awful and downright immersion breaking.
A wisdom you clearly lack.
Then what is to become of me?
I should kill you for the pain.
The music, however, is excellent with some memorable tracks there and there. I enjoyed it and it really fits the game's atmosphere. There isn't a lot to do in the present outside of the Animus. Walk around and talk to Lucy or Vidic, snoop on their emails from time to time. There is, however, much fun to be had inside the Animus. Assassin's Creed is played as a free-roaming platformer with some very original ideas. Gameplay was impressive, having you climb, jump, run, assassinate, and fight your way through the cities to each of the 9 targets. You visit each city, report to the Assassin Bureau, climb towers to reveal side quests, complete 2 or 3 of them to gather information, return to the Bureau and go for your kill. But here lies the problem. That's it. You do this exact thing all 9 times. The way you do this never changes and the gameplay never really evolves. Sure, you get a new ability or 2, but throwing knives isn't enough on its own to keep things interesting. Assassin's Creed may have been praised for its original ideas, but it was also criticized for reusing those ideas entirely too much throughout its length. The director's cut attempts to mitigate this by adding 4 extra types of side quests, but it isn't enough. Using Altair's signature hidden blade, you can stealthily assassinate your enemies in the streets. I use the term stealth loosely, as it's not very subtle, even though the game likes to pretend it is. In combat, you can attack, block, dodge, counter, throw enemies off roofs or into structures that will crash down on them from the impact. The kills are satisfying in combat thanks to the top-notch animations. Ultimately, though, combat gets stale for the same problem: repetition. There are a lot of collectible flags scattered around the world, but I had no desire to bother finding them. They seemed like filler, and so did the entirety of the Kingdom area. There wasn't much to do there besides climb towers. Now, the mouse and keyboard controls worked perfectly fine for me, but being an ex-console gamer, I'm more comfortable with a controller, so it didn't take long before I figured out how to do that. There was a fix needed for it, but it works great afterwards. So replayability is pretty low here. I didn't feel compelled to complete extra side quests or objectives. I don't think I want to play this one again. Assassin's Creed had excellent ideas that were ran into the ground by being reused too much. Despite that, the story is still interesting, the graphics are still stunning, and the game's world still feels very convincing. If you're considering playing the series, I'd recommend grabbing this one up first for the story. As long as you don't try to beat the entire game in a day, you're likely to come out of it mostly satisfied.